Hi, everyone. Welcome to the LiberAsian podcast. In this podcast, we explore how Asians can live lives of greater freedom despite any limiting cultural beliefs, stereotypes, or life situations in the way. My name is LiberAsian. I'm a life coach and I've been self-employed for about 1 year. And this is a topic I'm very passionate about. So glad to have you all here. And on the show today with me, we've got Joshua Lin. Joshua, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lilia. My name's Josh. I am currently living in Washington, D.C. And I'm currently getting my master's in marketing.
Cool.
It's pretty cool. It's sort of like all I do almost is like marketing and then cooking. And so it's like, from there, I guess I grew up like moving around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because my mom's in the military, so growing up we went to like China and Japan, and I lived across the United States as well. So moved around a lot there.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like moving around a lot and I guess experiencing those different cultures?
The first time was like hard, right? So I was 8. I remember I was 8 years old, and my mom was like, hey, like we have to move to Japan. And at the time I was in Maryland. And I was like, no, I don't want to leave. Like I got friends here, you know? So, eventually, so she took me to a Japanese restaurant, and we were eating, and she saw on the wall a katana, and she was like, if you don't complain about going to Japan, I'll buy you that katana. Or it was a set. And I was like, all right, bet. So, she bought me the katana when we went, and I was 8 years old, so it was really difficult, like at first comprehending, right? Because I'm not Japanese. I'm actually half, so I'm half white and half Taiwanese.
Oh, I see.
And so we moved to Japan, and so it was kind of I think my first question when we landed was like, are we still in August? Like the concept of the time jump was like not there, but
oh, are we still in August?
Like the time difference, because I was
okay.
Because I was told there would be a time difference. I was not told how long the time difference was.
That's funny. Oh wow.
But yeah, I mean, at first it was really weird. I mean, it was really cool. I loved being able to take in a lot of Japanese culture. But I do wish I did it at an older age and not a younger age. There's a lot that I loved about Japan that I just don't remember as well as I wish I did.
Oh, I see. Yeah. And it's interesting because before recording today, you mentioned that there's a bit of culture shock that happens, Asian culture shock, and I was wondering if you were referring to the experience in Japan, or was that to something else?
Okay. I got it. So this is more so me coming at it from like a halfy perspective, right?
Okay.
Rather than solely like an Asian perspective, because
okay.
When people see me, they don't automatically assume that I am half Asian. The automatic assumption, because I don't look like them, is that like I am the other one. So when I was living in China and Japan, the automatic assumption is that I'm full white. And I can tell because that's, what they speak to me in English is the first thing.
Oh.
Right? Yeah. and then, I surprise them and I'm like, speaking in Chinese, and they're like, oh my gosh. Right. And they're shocked because they're like, oh my gosh, this white guy can speak Chinese. But then over here, I have the same issue, except, it's not like people don't assume that I speak English, but people assume that I'm full white. And I have to communicate to them like well after the initial meeting that like I'm actually half,
I see.
Or I'm full Asian, sorry. So that's a really interesting thing that I noticed growing up very early on. It was just like people can't comprehend, at least initially, the idea of being half.
That's really interesting because when I saw you first time, I thought you were, Chinese because of your name and whatnot. So I thought the opposite. Do you ever get that too?
I mean, I think very rarely do it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That never really happens. I mean, it's a little different because you saw my name, I think, because of the last name.
Right.
But I mean, I've had people, girls on Tinder who are like, "Oh, are you Mexican?" Like, because they just don't know, right? Like, they just don't even know.
Right.
Or like, I don't think I look Mexican, but I mean, usually, right, people have a lot of experience. Or okay, there was this one girl I spoke to last week in school, and she was like, Josh, are you half Asian? And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never gotten that question in my life. And the reason I think the reason she asked that was because she's dated a lot of Asian guys in the past, so she already has a relatively like great understanding of Asian culture.
I see.
And like Asian people. So like she's already been surrounded by them before, and she's like, he doesn't look quite right. So that's probably what's going on in her head. So I think it's about experience. It's about the exposure that people have had to Asian culture, which in most cases is not a lot.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because it's like we're like Asians are like what, a third of the world, like a huge like significant percent of the world, yet like in this country we're considered minorities, which is kind of weird. But yeah, you had also mentioned being Asian Canadian as well. Was Canada a country you had been to, or am I remembering wrong?
I've been to Canada. I'm not Canadian.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I went to where did I go? I went to Nova Scotia once.
Oh, cool.
I went to Victoria, like out west. Victoria, yeah.
I see.
Yeah, and I think those are the two times I went to Canada. So
those are good places. I want to visit there at some point because I'm Canadian. I've pretty much grown up here my entire life. So Chinese Canadian. That's me. But yeah, like in terms of like, I guess your value system and who you identify as on the inside, like how Asian versus Western would you say you are on the spectrum?
This one's hard. There's a lot of Asian or a lot of halfies that struggle with this, right? I am an Asian, like, okay. I didn't grow up with a dad. It was just me and my mom. And so a lot of the Asian influence comes from her. She's Taiwanese. But I spent the majority of my childhood here in the US, right?
Right.
With maybe about 6 to 7 years outside of the US. And so it's sort of, when I was younger, I actually didn't want to be Asian. And I think this is something that a lot of halfies struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of Asian people struggle with too in the
Mm-hmm.
U.S.
Yeah.
From what I know. And then later on, you eventually start to embrace it because you realize that that's what makes you different, and that's what makes you unique.
Mm.
Even though if you look at it on a global scale, not really, but here in the U.S. at least, it's a part of your culture, it's a part of your identity,
Mm.
and it takes a while to realize that you have to embrace that. And like I like you see on Facebook forums, a lot of people who are in their 20s who are just realizing like, I'm proud to be Asian. And that's a really powerful thing, right? You can see it in the way that they do their photo shoots and the way that they, wear their clothes and the way that they present themselves. And like I wish you always end up wishing too late that you would you wish that you had a deeper connection to your culture.
Mm. Yeah. Where does that wish come from?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know. That's a hard one.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, where does that come from? I actually, oh, I think it comes from just the like there's a I did my undergrad in philosophy, so there's a theory in philosophy that identity is fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all of these different sections of your identity that are separate. And I think that wish to be deeper connected, more deeper connected to your Asian culture, your Asian roots, comes from that part of your identity that is there, but then later on you realize it's missing. And it's like you think about like this isn't just an Asian phenomenon too. This is like the majority. I think the majority of people who are like native something else that's not white is like they deal with that where especially coming to America or Canada, they end up being like damn, I wish I had, I wish I spent more time learning about my culture or my family's history or listening to my grandparents' stories before they died. And, you have all of these thoughts that come up later on in life.
Yeah, I think it's this sense of home and being connected to something like to I guess like that bigger storyline that we're a part of, or even finding an explanation for parts of our values or experiences that aren't explained by, let's say, mainstream American stories or media. So I feel, like I guess that search for completeness and wholeness in a sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So all in all, what would you say freedom means to you, and what does it look like for you?
America. No, I'm joking. I mean, I'm gonna get very analytical here. So like,
all right,
when we take a look at like what freedom is defined in America, it's the freedom to do things like to do X, right? So the government has given you the freedom to do something, right? Sure. To freedom to happiness, freedom to whatever. We've given that to you. Whereas, the way it should be arguably is the freedom from things. So the freedom from restriction, or the freedom from, I guess in this case would be like or freedom from restricting your culture, or restricting your needs, you could say. And so it's freedom from restricting your needs and wants. That's what it would be. So Like if you think about the way that most Asian people grow up is you have sort of the freedom to do things from your parents, right? You have the freedom to play piano. You have the freedom to eat, and like these are things that you're taught to be grateful for. Because not everybody gets the privilege to eat or play piano or violin or whatever the instrument is that your parents chose. And you have the freedom to study for the SATs. You have the freedom to, and it's like, a lot of this is stereotype, but it's, it comes from somewhere. And I think true freedom is freedom from restriction, freedom from, all of that stuff, and being able to actually be yourself, find an identity within yourself that is not defined by another person or another entity.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most profound answers I've heard to that question on this show so far. But yeah, so much of that resonates with me because it's like, yeah, both the Asian American cultures will say, hey, we give you the freedom to live up to all these prized cultural qualities, and here's the things you should want, because doesn't everybody want them, right? But but actually we as individuals can want some very different things. We may not want to play that instrument or an instrument at all. We may not want to study for SAT. We may not want to assimilate into American culture. So yeah, what would you say is your unique identity?
Damn, you got some hard questions.
Take a stab at it. Like, what have you discovered so far?
So, okay. When I think about this, I think about like the way that my friends think of me, right? Okay. Because they, well, like my theory is your identity changes based on the situation. So for example, my identity with you, the way that I present myself to you is going to be different than my identity when I'm with the boys versus my identity with my mom. In all three scenarios, I'm going to be a different type of person. I'm going to present myself differently. But overall, all encompassing identity, I mean, I'm me. I'm genuine. It's not, there's no label, or there's no way to put a label on it, I guess. You can define an individual by their personality traits. I mean, I'm in marketing, so we spend all day long talking about demographics.
Yeah.
But like when you take a look at, even if you were to make a segment, so a target segment, let's say I'm working for some company like Tim Hortons. All right, let's say I'm working for Tim Hortons and I'm trying to say, okay, who do we target next, right? Oh, we want to target women from age 18 to 24 in certain geographic areas. Not every single one of those people think exactly the same, right? Even though we assume that they do from a marketing perspective. Not every one of those people think the same. And to segment them like that is a little irresponsible, and to define them in that way is is just incorrect, is just improper.
I mean, yeah, like, yeah. Well, probably if you were to go up to them and, try to be friends and say, oh, you must be all these qualities, right? You'd probably get some pissed off responses.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what I mean.
Yeah. But yeah, like maybe from a marketing standpoint, to like when you're aiming for like a broader audience, sometimes it could be it may be useful to put qualities on people, but that's probably not gonna capture the whole picture, I'm guessing. And on top of that, probably it's like, each time we label someone with a quality, they may show the qualities opposite as well. Something I'm learning lately is that, like it's like, that spectrum. So it's like, someone who's very righteous, for instance, that will need to be balanced out by some kind of unrighteousness
exactly.
on some level. And it's like, if someone's go, they need to balance it with rest. That kind of thing.
Like if I were to say, like if I were to put a label on my identity and say, for example, like, oh, I am a hard, like you said, a hard worker, right? Even if I were to say that, which is, I'm not a hard worker all the time, I'm not a hard worker when I sleep, so it's like, I like to think that I am, but I'm not. So it's like, identity is a lot more fluid than we think. Even if I were to say, oh, I play guitar, and it's like, but like that could change, you know what I mean? Like I could stop playing guitar for 3 months and be really bad at it, so like things change.
It's like in constant flux, I guess. Just like the biochemical parts of the body, there's like these like traits that we sometimes express, sometimes don't, and you try to like put them back in balance. And I think that's why it's like while we're growing up, the culture kind of trains us to exhibit certain positive qualities, and which has a lot of us repress negative qualities seen as negative by the culture. But actually, I guess all of us, right, we're these like whole human beings who can't really be labeled and with a vast amount of potential. So yeah.
I mean, you look at, like what we were talking about before with Asian people who don't, who when they're younger aren't proud of their culture, but then when they're older, they realize, okay, this is something that I really wish I had more of. That's a change, it's a more gradual change, but it's a change over time, right? So if you were to say, if you were an Asian American or an Asian Canadian, and you were like 10 years old, your identity is going to change, because your identification with those, or your connection with those cultures is going to change over the next, even 6 months, as little as 6 months,
I'm probably like just like a lot of us, I'm probably like a collection of many different cultures, not just like Asian, like Chinese or Canadian, but like Japanese, because I watched like anime and like all these worldwide influences.
Right.
So like this combination of a lot of different cultures. But like what I guess what has helped to accept and integrate your Asian side?
Oh my God. It's like, I think it's almost like I'm the only Asian person in any of my friend groups, right? It's very hard to find Asian people in, not only at my school, because it's predominantly white, but in Washington, D.C., it's harder than finding Asians in like New York or San Francisco, but it's especially since our Chinatown actually like sucks, like it's really bad. So it's like it's really hard to find Asians. It would have been like the only Asians that I could find that I could feel like I could somewhat identify with. And this is part of what pushed me away from Asian culture in my undergrad. Was the only Asians I could find here were like real, like they you know, they're exchange students, you know.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah.
like right off the plane, like, you know, like, so it's like, I think part of that, and it's hard to identify with those people because I have the same problem as a halfie with white people and Chinese people, where they don't see me as the in group. So it's like, when the more time that I spend with people that aren't Asian, the more Asian I feel. And eventually I came to accept that, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna be Asian, and I'm gonna look good, and I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna be all of these things that, you know, and positive Asian associations, not negative ones. And eventually I was just like, that's okay, you know, it's okay to be Asian. But growing up, it's hard because, you know, it's everybody wants to be white.
Yeah, like even the full-on Asians who move to the States, or even like, yeah, like even people in the home countries often may want to have the same amount of status or privilege. But yeah, like I can relate to what you're saying quite a bit. Like when I'm around Chinese people, per se, like true Chinese people, I feel pretty slow and also pretty American, sort of.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I think slower, talk slower. I don't bargain at the booths. You know, I don't have as many street smarts, right? I'm direct and honest, which is not actually a Chinese. It is and it isn't a Chinese thing. And and then when I'm around, what is it? Non-Chinese people, you know, and this happened when I worked in New Jersey for a while. um I feel Asian and I start missing the Chinatown, you know, Chinatown, and you know, missing my family, even though on a normal day I prefer to be away from them, right? So yeah, I can relate to some of those feelings.
Yeah, my mom is currently working in Belgium. And when I went to visit her just before COVID, and I went there for about a month. It was for like a winter break, and it was like, there's no Asians in Belgium. There's no, you know, at least in where we were at in Brussels, there's no Asians. There's no Asian food. And so, you know, and all the Asian food that there is not very good. So it's like, it's very hard, you know, to you know, especially in a place where you're surrounded or I guess secluded from other Asians. It's like eventually you want to go back.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, you know, when I want to cook something, I'm like, where's soy sauce? You know, where's my sesame oil? You know,
Oh yeah.
Where did that go? Yeah, yeah.
When I cook, I actually, this is actually, I'm the opposite with cooking. So like, I'm trying to be more Asian, of course. But when I cook, I guess I'm making Indonesian chicken satay this week.
Oh, that sounds really good.
But I have to marinate the chicken. But yeah, I went to H Mart. I got like galangal, and I got like all these like ethnic Indonesian ingredients, and I'm like, I'm ready, you know. But for the most part, I actually don't cook Asian food. I cook a lot more Italian, French, and American continental, because it's like part of it is because I am a fancy bitch, and I need my dishes to be fancy. But then that creates another question of like, well, why can't Asian food be fancy? And it's like it's hard, right? Because the conception of what is fancy and what is expensive and what is considered luxury is all white, and if you like, there are very few Michelin star restaurants that are Asian. I mean, even people on YouTube who go to Michelin star restaurants, I've only seen one. Well, I've seen a few Japanese ones. But I've seen one from India, or like one Indian Michelin star restaurant. And it's like, but there's like 20 French ones in my neighborhood, or 20 French ones near where I live. And so it really makes you think. It's like, I part of it, I think, because culinary is a little different. Part of it is like with Asian food, right? A lot of food is made for sharing.
Yeah.
So dishes are a lot larger.
Yeah.
Which, again, is a conception of not luxury, because because white people had that luxury, historically, to have separate dishes, and culturally they do. But we all, when we go to the restaurant, we all share. Oh, let's get some let's get some like like, so, oh, let's get like 3 dishes and we're all going to share it with some rice.
Yeah.
And that style of eating is just not considered high end.
Yeah, that could definitely be a factor. And I'm also thinking, of budgets as well, because it's probably a stereotype, but Asians are cheap, that idea, right? So it's like, we're maybe, we recognize that great food doesn't have to come at a high price, and maybe have figured out how to make great food at a lower price. But I have seen pretty high-end stuff back in China, and I wonder if it's harder for that high-end stuff in China to make it over to America, because immigrants come over, they're trying to keep costs low, right? Then they, when they open and run their restaurants, maybe that becomes a habit to continue on along that route, and then it gives like maybe other people, like maybe the whites, perception that the food is not high end, because it's done on a lower budget or whatnot. And yeah, could be a difference of taste too. Sorry, but when it comes to really spicy food, for instance, the spice is dampened a lot when it goes to certain American regions. And often things get sweetened too, so that authenticity may be lost, right? So all of that stuff could be contributing too.
When it comes to food, part of, I think historically, this is the reason why stereotypically white people can't handle their spice. And I don't say that to be mean, because I can't handle my spice. So I get it. But historically, this is I think how it is that I think Western countries discovered refrigeration a lot earlier. There are still a lot of underdeveloped Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries, who haven't discovered or it took a lot longer to discover refrigeration, and so it was the spices that they used to preserve the food in their own way, and then over several generations that just became a tolerance.
Okay, so when things are how does refrigerating things create, I guess, less of a like a preference for more bland foods?
Oh, well, it's not like it's more of like they didn't need to put spices on their food to preserve it because they had refrigeration to help them, right? And so because Asians didn't, and it took them longer to find refrigeration, they needed to find a different way to preserve their food, right?
Right.
So
Put a lot of spices.
yeah,
To
exactly.
stay lots of salt, right?
And so like now, like a lot of this well, not just Asians, pretty much, a lot of African countries, Middle Eastern countries, Asian countries, like we all eat, a lot of, I hate to say it like this, but white people food, and it doesn't have enough flavor for a lot of,
doesn't hit the spot quite as much.
And that, so I truly believe, I think historically that's the reason why.
I see. Yeah. Well, I certainly see a possibility in combining that high-end luxury Western food with Chinese, like blending recipes or cooking styles. I think that would be so cool to see more of. But yeah, I also know you had wanted to talk about business and gender roles for our podcast today, and I was wondering if you wanted to share your thoughts on either of those or both of those.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, I could talk about that. I saw a study a couple weeks ago about how Asians are the least likely race to get, or the least likely group to get promoted. So I mean, it was I'm not going to make a huge statement here when I say this, but it's just like, I think part of that comes from the model minority idea, and how like we are almost seen as the minority who doesn't need any help, which has its benefits, but it also has its cons, because I think in terms of recognition as a valid minority is still needed. I don't think it's there. When we take a look at not just business, but also especially like media, right? There are no Asians. I mean, there are a lot of Asians in the quantitative departments, and there are a lot of, so like when you take a look at finance and all those, there's too many Asians, arguably. But then you take a look at like movies, right? If you were to take a look at Hollywood, and then this is a recurring thing in a lot of Asian discussions, is like there are no Asians in Hollywood, and the only ones that are the ones that make movies for white people. Like you'd make there was this huge thing about Crazy Rich Asians, the movie. But it's like, I don't think it was designed for Asians, or even Mulan. The new Mulan movie. You want to talk about that? Oh. Like, yeah. No Asian liked that one. It's just like, I think there's still as far as understanding goes, like a disconnect, right? Because there's a lot of attention on Hispanic and African Americans, which is good. They deserve that attention. Yeah. But I think that Asians have been missed because of the model minority idea that we don't need help.
That's the first time I'm hearing that, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm still learning. But Yeah, no, I didn't know that Crazy Rich Asians was made for white people too. And then when it comes to Mulan, I'm already thinking, yeah, there's probably like an infinite number of Chinese movies, like China produced movies and TV series that like vastly like, outperform Mulan when it comes to quality. It's just like it may not be as popular as like anime, but worldwide, but it really could be. I feel so the
I mean,
quality there is better in a sense.
yeah, or just like representation. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
idea of Mulan, the live action Mulan, actually even the original Mulan. Like I love the original Mulan,
Mm-hmm.
but
Right.
I mean, it's like that there's so many cultural issues around it
Mm-hmm.
that personally I don't really care about.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem comes when people who aren't familiar with Asian culture actually assumes that's what it's like. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So like that's where the problem comes up.
Okay. I actually did not watch the live action
Mhm.
movie. Like, what are some of the things they got terribly wrong in the movie?
I
Well, maybe one
only
thing.
watched some parts
Okay.
and like I couldn't I couldn't
Sit
keep
through
watching.
it.
It was
Couldn't
like
keep watching. Oh.
it was like overblown,
Oh.
the concepts of um like the family values,
Mm.
and then I think there was like magic and shit, and it was
Oh,
just
okay.
like
All right.
yeah. So
uh,
just not a great representation of Asian culture, you know, overall.
and what did Crazy Rich Asians get wrong? Because I watched that and I couldn't pick up on
Well,
what was off.
it wasn't you know that wasn't as bad.
Okay.
The Crazy Rich Asians part that I or the thing about Crazy Rich Asians that I didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, so here's my theory, right? I have a theory on um the desexualization of Asian men in media. Okay.
Okay.
This is a huge different thing that
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting. Um, and you know, it comes from the concepts of Asian guys being nerds in all of the movies and TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like even the girl I was talking to last week who asked me about if I was half or not. She was like, "Oh yeah, like all the guys I've dated are Asians." I'm like, "Why?" And she's like, "I love nerds." And I'm like, "That's not the same thing."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was like when you take a look at like Asian men statistically are the least attractive group of people, right? Which is, I think it's okay. Like I get pissed about it because I'm an Asian
You
man,
mean
but
you mean like when you look at actual dating statistics in America, they're seen
yeah,
as the least attractive?
yeah, at least in the U.S., right? There are
Okay.
studies done that when they take a look at what race or race preferences for both men and women. This
Mm-hmm.
is of course assuming heterosexual relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, Asian men have the worst rating, except when it comes to Asian women, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but even then, it's like very close to like white
Mm-hmm.
guys. There's a lot, yeah. So
That's rough. That is pretty rough.
which
Not
you know,
gonna lie.
it's kind of fine because it's like somebody has to be, you know, the worst, right? Somebody has to be the least attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's like I think a huge part of it is just, you know, Asians are not considered, or Asian men specifically. Asian women are always considered. Asian men are never considered when it
Oh.
comes to dating. And that's starting to change. But what
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed is Asian men become a lot more attractive when there are attractive Asian men in media. And I'll give you specific examples top of mind.
Sure.
The first time I experienced this was when The Walking Dead was first aired on AMC.
Okay.
And it's because there's a specific character named Glenn, who a lot of people found attractive. Yeah. And so, but with that comes a lot of like fetishization, right? So it's like it's like, okay, yes, Asian men are more attractive, at this point in time, but for the wrong reasons, right? And then after that was BTS in 2018. You see what I'm saying? Like, like once BTS became popular in Western cultures, there were a lot more women who considered Asian men as a potential, like partner.
Wow. The media is like so powerful and powerful and misguided. I would say, because there's like I know what you're saying is triggering so many thoughts for me. Like, first of all, like the whole like, emasculation of the Asian man. It was some lie created by Hollywood because white men were jealous of the strong Asian railroad workers from like X number of years ago. And those guys were attractive, right? But the white man was like, oh, you're going to pose a threat to my own coolness. So you take that, and then you get that. And then, I've met more than one Asian guy who's, been affected by the way Asian men have been portrayed in the media. It's like, it's damaging to self-confidence. So many, it can be, especially when people use that as a way to like prey on, those individuals. And yeah like, I don't know, like, okay, I'm speaking as an Asian woman, right? I need to be careful sometimes around Asian guys because I don't want to get too like attracted. which is ridiculously funny. But I also wonder, right, like, there was a friend I was talking to this week about something similar, and he was like, yeah, things, qualities become like attractive qualities become in fashion and out of fashion sometimes for the most ridiculous reasons, and to use that as a barometer for like, self-worth is not the best idea, but it's like that was a really interesting observation. So it's like the stuff that's considered attractive on this side of the world. I also think it may be like women, or maybe women and men are attracted to people who have complementary qualities. It's like, it's like their shadow side. So it's like, for me, right, like because of my upbringing, everything, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be like a goody two shoes traditional girl, in a sense. So if I meet somebody who is like, witty, charismatic, and like, bold, right, that that drives me nuts. That honestly does. But it's like, with that kind of setup. But yeah, what you mentioned about Asians, you know uh not necessarily being nerds, right? I actually, that made me think twice, because I realized I actually have that stereotype in my head. And I'm like, oh shit, I need to meet more people probably. Because I mean, to a certain extent, it may be true, given like how much like Asian families, train us to value schooling and education and working really hard. But does that mean that we're like naturally smart? Maybe like, or no, or like, talented academically?
Right.
Maybe not, right?
Yeah.
So
But like the thing is with the like Asian men not being attractive thing, like growing up was really hard for me because I learned it at a very young age. Like it was during puberty, I realized I was like, I don't look like Chris Evans. I don't look like Ryan Reynolds. And I don't look like Ryan Gosling. So therefore, I'm not, like, by definition, I am not attractive in the United States. And that was really hard for me, right? And now I don't give a shit because I know I'm hot. So, but it's like, but it's like before, like I had a lot of image issues. I had a lot of self-worth issues because I knew that fact. Or that's what I thought. And it's like, I think eventually, once you start to take pride in being Asian, that doesn't really become as much of a problem.
Right. Yeah. And what were some, I guess, things about being Asian you started to take pride in?
One of the things was fashion. Asians have a different style of fashion.
Yeah.
And like I have a shirt. My favorite shirt. I'm not wearing it, unfortunately, but my favorite shirt is in my closet, and it's a red dress shirt, and it has like these gold roses on, or gold flowers on the yeah. It's really cool. Yeah. And I'm looking at, and this, is a little stereotypical, but like I'm looking at it, and then I look at it in the mirror, and I'm like, I look Asian as fuck, but I look hot. So I was like, I was like, I was like, do I want to look Asian or do I want to look white? And so like, I think it was once I got that shirt, it was that shirt. Right. I was like, like maybe I should start trying to look more Asian because I spent all this time growing up trying to look white, and it's just like, this isn't working for me because this isn't who I am.
Yeah, actually, I personally am much more a fan of Asian fashion styles rather than the Western stuff. Like I go to a shopping mall, and a lot of the styles there just don't quite fit my taste. But when I go to China, it's like not only are there many more styles that fit with like my skin color, my hair color, and so on and so forth, but it's actually cheaper. Like there's much cheaper variety and selection there. So, and then when you look at when you look at the the popular people in China, well, not popular people, but like those actors and actresses dressed up like ancient China martial arts, wuxia or xianxia style. It's like, holy smokes, these makeup artists are genius. Yeah. I actually went to like a dress up booth back in Chengdu, and I'm like, wow, I don't even recognize myself, but I could be in a movie. Yeah, so I personally think we have better taste. Not meaning to like diss the other side, but yeah. So yeah, tell me more about do you have any other thoughts to share on this topic, or
no, we can move on.
Okay, cool.
I got it out. Got it
out. Yeah. It's much needed. I think you spoke for a lot of people there. Yeah. So yeah, what about do you have other thoughts on business you want to share? Like you mentioned you were really passionate about it, and wondering what had you get really interested in it.
Part of it, and I mentioned a little bit about this before, was it's automatically assumed, and this whole everything that I think I've talked to about on this podcast is about assumptions, on some to some degree. And it's like, the automatic assumption is that if you're Asian and you're working in business, you're working in the accounting department, or finance. And I think that's it. And
interesting.
because it's like, because we're gifted with numbers or something, apparently, right?
Okay.
Fucking no one told me. So yeah, but yeah, that's the assumption, right? Is and a lot of that's media. Like I don't know if you've seen The Big Short. The only Asian guy in that movie is the quantitative guy, the guy who does the who ran the numbers to check the. So it's like that's part of it, right? And then part of it too comes from, because even that comes from somewhere. Even the assumptions made about Asian people in media comes from somewhere else, and that comes from, I think, the majority. I don't want to say majority, but like this sort of idea that Asians, we need to make a lot of money, right? Because we love money. 恭喜发财, we get rich, so it's like we got to make a lot of money, we love money, and it's like, doctor, engineer, lawyer, and then if none of those work out, business, because that's where you make money, those four places. And they don't want you to become a doctor because you help people. They want you to become a doctor because you make money.
Yeah.
They don't want you to become a lawyer to help people. Like, they don't want you to be, they say lawyer, but they really mean corporate lawyer, because if you work as an environmental lawyer, they're not happy. So it's like, it's all about money. And when the automatic assumption is, you go into those fields because of your family, ideologies or whatever. And that's something that is really sad, especially since the best marketers that I know are Asian. So it's just like, yeah, it's just really, I need to get that out. It's like, we're not all finance people. Like, we're not all, computer science is in there now too.
Yeah.
But that falls under engineering, because it's software engineering.
Yeah.
So, it's hard. It's rough out there.
Yeah. And this pain is felt by me also, and a bunch of Asians who are inborn creatives and non-traditionalists, and basically all those other personality types that are not as designed for like either like the academic or work stresses of some of those professions. For instance, I decided not to continue like the idea of going into medical school, because I was like, wow, biology is already, grade 12 biology is already stressing me out. Like right, there's people who can work 14-hour days, like it's nothing. Probably it's really not nothing to them, but for me that would be too much, right? So it's like there's this diversity of character and interests and strengths amongst all of us, but it's so, like, I would say it is quite underutilized if we're all being funneled towards those particular paths. And yeah, it took like, what is it, I was in the tech field for like 7 years. That includes school, right? And it took immense courage to quit that. For me, some people are like, they care less about what other people think, and naturally, and they can just like quit, right? But for me, it took 7 years, because I was like, what is my family gonna think, and what are they gonna say, right? It felt to me like a life or death situation. And then I quit, and I was like, oh, no one killed me, good. I felt so relieved by that. But what you said also brings up the topic that, hey, we as Asians have so much to offer, like all fields, honestly, right? A lot of us are brought up to have a good work ethic. That's just one example. But also maybe be considerate of the environment around us and make more like calculated long-term decisions too. I'm not saying that's true of all Asians, but yeah, it can really, I think, help in any kind of career.
Yeah, I think the the Asians who luckily or who are fortunate enough to have the freedom to stray away from the norm, right? The Asians who, they're like you, so it's like, it's a really great thing, what you've been able to do and share your story. It's actually really, really, what's the word? Inspiring to a lot of younger Asians, for sure.
Yeah. And then there's the people who don't, like, for financial reasons, or because of family pressure, right? Like, my parents aren't tiger parents, but some parents are true tiger parents. One of those two reasons makes them probably have a lot harder time of making a switch if they want to. So yeah, not to like put like a dark rain cloud here, but yeah. So but yeah, I'm sure there's people who have managed to still do what they love, despite whatever situation they were at in the beginning. And I have much respect for those people too. Yeah. Yeah, so any other thoughts on just like business or other stereotypes or breaking free? Or
I got it all out. I'm good.
Oh, you're good. Oh, wow.
I got it all out.
That's awesome.
It's all out there now.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Well, are there any final thoughts you want to share with our audience before we close off?
Stay in school, don't do drugs.
Oh, okay.
Those are my final thoughts. Yes.
From a fellow responsible Asian. Big brother Asian.
I actually, though, final thoughts. I think, it's really difficult from, like, if we're gonna bring it, we should bring it back to freedom. It's like, freedom, I think the most liberating form of freedom is the freedom to be yourself. And it's just like, unfortunately, a lot of Asians don't have that luxury, but hopefully one day, in every Asian's life, it will become easier to do so.
Yeah, it's like, I once heard this saying where it's like where a lot of us are like maybe tied up on a chair and there's ropes, but then if we like wiggle a little bit, we can start to become more and more free. And that's the image that what you said reminded me of. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed our episode today. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Joshua. And yeah, for those of you watching, hope you enjoyed it as well. Hope you learned a lot. I certainly did. And we shall see you in the next episode. Take care, everyone.